Hi, welcome to Light Lesson 3. For today's lesson, we'll be learning what are opaque, translucent and transparent materials, how shadows are formed, and the types of shadow that are cast by different types of materials with different degrees of transparency to light. So what are opaque, translucent and transparent materials? Basically, opaque materials do not allow light to pass through, and transparent materials allow most light to pass through, and translucent materials allow some light to pass through. And we can show this using this diagram here. If you take a look at this diagram, the background is made of checkered boxes. If you take a look at this region here, this area here, you see that you cannot see the background at all, which means that the light coming from the background cannot pass through this area here. So this area is actually made of, or actually materials in this area will be opaque materials. And in this area here, where some light is allowed to pass through so that you can see the background, this would be your translucent materials. And in this area here, where most of the light can pass through easily, and you can see the background very clearly, so this would be your transparent materials. Let me illustrate with some examples. Here we have an ice cream cone, and if we place different materials in front of the ice cream cone, we may or may not be able to see the object clearly. And so from that, we can determine whether the materials that we put are opaque, translucent, or transparent. Now firstly, if you recall from your first two lessons, the ice cream cone is actually reflecting light. So the light from the ice cream cone is actually being reflected, and it's actually being reflected into your eyes, right? This ice cream cone is reflecting light into your eyes from a light source. And so if we were to put an opaque material in front of the ice cream cone, like this, then we will not be able to see the ice cream cone because the light from the ice cream cone is totally blocked by the opaque material. Because opaque materials do not allow light to pass through. Of course, the opposite will be true if we use a transparent material. If we use a transparent material like this and place it over the ice cream cone, you can see that you actually can see the ice cream cone very clearly. So, because transparent materials allow most light to pass through them. And of course, translucent materials allow some light to pass through them. So if you put a translucent material in front of the ice cream cone, you realize that you cannot see the ice cream cone very clearly, but you can see the ice cream cone, but not too clearly. I can show this again using some other examples. For example, take a look at this. Now the part here, okay, the part here is opaque, so you can't see the ice cream cone. But the part here you can see, actually can see a bit of the ice cream cone. So this part is actually translucent. Same for this part here. And of course here will be transparent. Right? You can see from the magnifying glass. The magnifying glass is actually made of a transparent material. So you can see the ice cream cone very clearly. And I can change this to other colors as well. You can see that again, you cannot see the object very clearly when it is placed behind a translucent object. So you can see that the blue color part here is a bit translucent, so you cannot see the ice cream cone very clearly when it's placed behind the blue circle. And sometimes we have materials that are made of different types of colors, and we put them in front of the ice cream cone. You can still roughly see the ice cream cone, but however it's not that clear. You can't see all the colors very clearly. Same for this. So all these would be translucent materials. And in our everyday life, we always encounter opaque, transparent, and translucent materials. For example, the ball here is made of an opaque material. The vase that's in the picture here, as well as the wall, the floor, the lamp, they are all made from opaque materials. the things in the bathroom, most of it is made from opaque materials, you can see from this picture here. And there's actually a transparent material here in the picture. Can you see it? Yes, it's actually the glass at the shower area. And here is a typical thing that you may see in some of your father's office, where you have a glass walls and then or glass doors, and they're made of both translucent and transparent materials. And here's another example of a translucent material. You cannot see the girl behind the wall very clearly because it only allows some light to pass through, so you can only see the outline or the shadow of the girl. And here's another example of a translucent material. And what about this? These colored circles, are they translucent or are they opaque? So actually they are translucent because you can see that they actually allow light to pass through. So therefore they allow some light to pass through, so you can see the colored circles on the surface here. So they are actually translucent materials. And finally, here's something that you will encounter quite frequently. We have different types of plastic cups. Now the question to you now is, all these different types of plastic cup, do they show a transparent, translucent and opaque plastic cup or not? So if you take a look at this obviously is transparent because you can see the two other cups very clearly. This would be a translucent cup, but however this cup, will it be translucent or opaque? So to find out, maybe you have to take the cup and shine a torchlight through it to see whether it allows light to pass through, or to feel something inside the cup and to see whether you can see it from the outside, or see some shadow or some shape of it from the outside. If you can see that, then that will be a translucent material. If not, then it will be an opaque material. So, in summary, opaque materials do not allow light to pass through. Translucent materials allow some light to pass through them. And transparent materials allow most light to pass through them. So the difference is some and most. And here we have a picture to show you. If you take a look at the window frame, the window is made from a transparent the window frame itself is made from an opaque material because you can't see the butterfly or the light reflected from the butterfly. But the window panes themselves, which are made from glass, are transparent because you can see the butterfly clearly. And of course the ball here is made from a translucent material because once you place the ball in front of the window pane and the butterfly, you cannot see the image clearly. So you need to allow some light to pass through. And the amount of light that can pass through a material is called the degree of transparency to light. The degree of transparency to light. And transparent materials have the highest degree of transparency to light because it allows most light to pass through, and opaque materials have the lowest transparency to light because they do not allow any light to pass through. Next, we're going to talk about how shadows are formed. And basically, shadows are formed when light rays are blocked. So what does that mean? So let's say we have a light source here. And of course, the light source will be giving out light in all directions. And then we have an object, and we place the object in front of the light source. When we place the object in front of the light source, then we expect that there will be a shadow that will be formed here. And there will be shadows that will be formed here because the light cannot pass through the box. So let me show you again. Let's erase the shadow first and view the box from the side. Let's say the box is placed at the side here. Now this is a light source. Now when the light is shining, right, the light rays will be traveling from the light source in all directions. And when the light rays hit the object, since this is an opaque object, it doesn't allow light to pass through. Then what happens is that since light cannot pass through, then the area behind the box here, this area here, since it doesn't have any light, it will form a shadow. So a shadow will be formed behind the box. And so that means that a shadow is just simply an area where there is no light or has less light. So now that we understand how shadows are formed, do different materials form different types of shadows? The answer is, of course, yes. For example, if we have an opaque material, then the shadow that is formed by the opaque material, since it doesn't allow any light to pass through at all, would be very dark. Okay, will be very dark. And if we have a translucent material like this, allow some light to pass through, then the shadow that is formed will be lighter. So you'll form a light shadow. And if it were to be a transparent material like this, and we put in front of light source, then the shadow form will be very, very light. And sometimes we cannot see the shadow clearly at all. So that's why we say that transparent materials, sometimes we say that it doesn't form any shadow. So in primary science, we will say that opaque material forms a dark shadow, translucent materials form light shadows, and transparent materials, since the shadow form is very, very light, so we just say that it has no shadows. Next, here's something interesting. Can shadows change shape? And of course, if you observe things around you, you'll notice that the shadows can change shapes because different objects at different times of the day, for example, may have different types of shadows. So let's take a look at an example. Here we have an umbrella, and here we have a light source. So if we put a light source here, and the light casts a shadow, then the shadow that is formed by the umbrella would most likely be a bit round, right, following the shape of the umbrella. So I'll shade the shadow instead of coloring it. And of course, if we move the light source here to this side, then we may find that the shadow actually changes shape. The shadow might actually become like this, following the shape of the umbrella. So the shadow might look like this with the handle here, and then the umbrella. And the shadow would change shape when the light source changes or the object changes direction or changes position. So just now what I did was I moved the light source. I moved the light from here to here, and you can see that the shadow actually changed. And same thing, instead of moving the light, I can also rotate the object. If I change the object and I move the position of the object, the shadow will also change its shape. And if the umbrella were placed on the ground, then the light source is shining from the left side, the shadow will be something like this. And if the light is shining from the right, then the shadow will look something like this. And here is another example using a ball. If the light source is here, then the shadow that is formed would be on this side. And if the light source is moved to here, then the shadow that's formed will be directly below the ball. And if the light source is moved to the right side, then the shadow will be formed on the left side here, like this. And so here's a question for you. Is the umbrella made of an opaque material, transparent material, or translucent material? Or rather, is this part of the umbrella, the part that shelters you from the rain, is it made from an opaque material, transparent material, or translucent material? Think about it and think about how you can prove your answer. And also, in case you do not know, they are actually translucent and transparent animals. As you can see from the pictures here of many different types of sea creatures, as well as some other animals here.